It's time for the Volquest Mailbag podcast, answering your questions from the General's quarters every week, right here on Volquest.
Welcome into the Volquest Mailbag podcast here at Volquest.com over on the On3 Network. If you haven't already, please subscribe and join us, inviting all Tennessee fans. $1 for 1 year. You simply can't beat it. And as always, follow our work on Volquest or on YouTube by searching Volquest. Got a ton of questions here today, so we're going to go through it a little rapid fire. I'm Eric Cain with Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price. First up is Greg McLean 8. Is Burrell all we have at the other corner, or can they move Christian Charles or Kamal Hadden over there? Brent, I feel like the more Charles gets in some work, the better idea they'll have in him. But Warren Burrell's going to play for the time being.
Well, what's interesting is, Josh Heupel and Tim Banks both, Austin, went out of their way to talk about Warren Burrell's play against Ball State and were complimentary of his play. Now, I like the 16 snaps Kamal Hadden gave. I think Kamal Hadden needs more opportunities on the field. We'll see if he gets those on Saturday. But the bottom line is Warren Burrell's got to make some plays because they're going to keep, they being other teams, are going to keep throwing it at him.
Yeah, they are. And I expect Pitt to come right out of the gate at him, Saturday. I mean, maybe they see something different because they understand the responsibilities of the defense call that we don't see. And so maybe that's why they're able to talk more positively about, what Warren Burrell did on a play than the common fan or us, notice, when they're playing. Otherwise, it just seems like there's a lot of cushion and a lot of easy pitch and catches that gain 9-10 yards over there.
We'll go to Sam Smith, 2233. Rob, does Pitt have the defensive backs to play press on Tennessee's big body wide receivers?
Yeah, I think they're going to try. We're going to find out. I'll be stunned if that's not something that Tennessee gets a heavy dose of. We'll see if those guys can hold up, but philosophically, I think that's what they're going to want to do.
Another one here from Sam Smith, Brent. Are we going to see Tennessee's tight end stay in to help running backs and left tackle in pass pro? That's something we've talked about throughout the offseason, and specifically for this game. That tight ends can do a number of different things, as we spoke on the Rocky Top Roundtable. But I do think that will be a thing to where you see tight ends stay in a little bit this week.
Well, it depends on how much help that they need. Pitt's going to bring more than you have to block for sometimes. Now, the quarterback's legs, you got to account for that. And Hendon Hooker's going to run more probably than he did a year ago, and certainly run more than Joe Milton did a year ago when he was the starter. But yeah, they may have to max protect some, depending on what the play call is. But that also depends on how Jabari Small and Jalen Wright handle pass protection. And we know that, the tight ends can handle some pass protection as well. The tight ends were pretty involved in this game last year. They had some catches. They got them involved in the passing game a bit. So I think you'll have to do it some, particularly in third and passing obvious situations, maybe from time to time. But I don't think they're going to sit there and go, hey, we're going to keep the tight end and play basically 6 offensive linemen the entire game. So I think they'll mix it up some.
Let's go to Vol_fan89. Austin, thoughts on Florida rising all the way to number 12 in the AP poll and the potential for a top 10 Gator team to roll into Knoxville in a couple of weeks. Of course, Tennessee comes into number 24 in the AP this week as well.
It's why I think that preseason polls are pointless because, how do you go? They beat Utah just because Utah was preseason ranked 7th. They go flying up the charts. Are they 12th? I don't know. Maybe they are. I think you brought it up, earlier in the week. Michigan was unranked to start last year and ended up in the college football playoff. So, I don't get real worked up about all that. If Florida, I think it's great if Florida ends up as a top 10 team, in a couple of weeks, because if Tennessee beats them, then they've got a top 10 win, and there's a rub on that, right? So, it is what it is. Tennessee's just got to keep their head down, keep working, and keep playing.
I think Florida's going to be in the top 10 after this week because I think Florida's going to beat Kentucky, and I think that they're going to be a darling. You got a new head coach down there and Billy Napier. They're going to have 2 big wins to start when a lot of people thought, Rob, they might go 1-1 or even 0-2. And so I think they're going to be kind of the early season cat's meow to all the national voters out there.
This is an Austin Price style hot take. I think it's absurd. I don't think they're very good. I don't know how good Utah is. Utah if Utah's quarterback doesn't throw one in the dirt into double coverage, we're not even talking about this right now. And then, Florida's playing a Kentucky team this week that is starting a high school kid, a running back. Hubbard, I agree with you. They're going to be ranked in the top 10, and it's going to be as Bruce Pearl once famously said about a player who I will not name, he's a paper gangster. They're going to be a paper gangster when they come in here ranked in the top 10.
We'll go to Zeusify, and Kentucky's going to have some issues at running back this week for sure against Florida, so that's to Florida's advantage. Who is UT's biggest downfield threat besides Tillman? Rob, let's stay with you. I don't know if we have seen Brew McCoy enough to know if he could be a down-the-field target, which I'm sure he can be. Hyatt's got the speed to take the top off the defense, as does a couple of, Jimmy Callaway and others. But who would you say would be another downfield target outside of Tillman?
If you're just talking about somebody who can run by somebody, it's Jalen Hyatt. We've seen that before. Even as a freshman, he did, popped loose, against a really good Alabama team. And so if you're just talking about losing your dude and, being clear and waving your hand in the air, it's Hyatt. I'll be anxious to see Brew McCoy on some 50-50 type balls because he looks like a guy that can win those battles.
Yeah, and again, Tennessee's got some speed. You've got Squirrel White. You've got Jimmy Holiday. I mentioned Callaway there. He probably should have came third in that conversation, but Tennessee does have some speed just simply running behind guys. But I'm with you. I want to see McCoy on some 50-50 balls. We just haven't seen him play a whole lot, obviously. Just one game, really just 2 quarters. We'll go to Athron. A couple of questions here. What is the answer to getting to the quarterback this week? I think we can all agree that starts with Byron Young, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. He's got to play better with his hands, and take advantage of the opportunities when Pitt sits back there and sits in the pocket. Ball State did not want to do that. They wanted to get it out of their hands faster. But I think Byron Young's got to find it a little bit better game-wise than what he did against Ball State. I'm not saying he was terrible, but he just wasn't as active as I thought he would be. I think it starts there. Tyler Barron on the other side. And then to me, guys, it's about how exotic does Tim Banks get? Does he twist? Does he stunt? Does he stem? Is it just straight linebacker blitzes? I think he was pretty vanilla with his toolbox in this Ball State game. So we'll see what he's got for Pitt's offense coming up on Saturday, because I think you'll see a different style of defense in some ways.
Couple of recruiting questions here, still from Athron. Latest with Devin Hobbs, AP.
Tennessee, Bama, Georgia. And, I just think North Carolina's fading there. I'm not going to totally rule them out because they're the in-state school, but it certainly feels like he wants to play in the SEC. And he'll be here in a couple of weeks for the Florida game. He's going to visit Georgia. He's going to visit Alabama. And so Tennessee has really kind of reasserted themselves there. And I think it's Tennessee, Alabama, the top 2 in my opinion.
Anything new with Boo Carter 2024?
No, Tennessee's very much in the thick of it, but a long way to go in that one. So, yeah. For Tennessee, the biggest thing is you just want to continue to get Boo to campus as much as possible. He did not come in at the end of July, but you'd love to get him here for an early season home game, maybe the Florida game.
And if Tennessee holds on to the commitment of all 3, how big is getting 3 true corners in the class and not just athletes you think that can play cornerback? I like this collection, AP, Ricky Gibson, Jordan Matthews, and of course, Conyer, who Conyer could play wide receiver as well, but he is going to play cornerback. First time in a while, Tennessee's brought in this many true corners, and I like the makeup of 2, really all 3 of them.
Yeah, 100%. They all offer something different. They're all bigger guys and play with physicality. They're long. I think it's big, and they want to add another corner or 2, which is why they've dove back into the prep ranks and have offered a few kids. They'd love to add a 4th corner in this class. Tennessee just needs to continue to add depth in the secondary.
Rob, will go to Pitt Vol. From a roster standpoint, is Tennessee still looking up at a team like Florida, or is Tennessee in good shape from a roster perspective compared to any teams not named Alabama and UGA? References still recovering from the Pruitt debacle, but the addition of the transfer portal, name, image, likeness, all those being factors into helping your roster in the short term.
Yeah, I go back to I don't know everybody in the SEC, but going back in the preseason, everybody that Tennessee played, I took a pretty hard look at, Eric. I know you did too. And I mean, I personally feel like Tennessee is pretty close to Florida. I mean, I feel like Heupel needs to stack at least one more recruiting class, like the one he's putting together now, and have them, kind of get seasoned. But I mean, I know we just talked about it a couple of minutes ago. Florida beat Utah, all that, and they're pretty thin. I mean, they do not have the skill that they have had pretty much all of our adult lives. I mean, they don't excite you, or they don't excite me at running back. I don't think they have receivers. I mean, Richardson's a big time talent, and if he's got it going on, he'll cover up a lot of warts. But I don't think there's a big talent gap at all between Tennessee and Florida. And I could be proven wrong in a couple of weeks, but I don't think the Gators are what they have been, or even close. For most of the past 10 years.
I don't think they, especially are, Rob, on defense. Like, I think that's where the biggest glaring drop off is on the defensive side of the ball. They're still good. They still have talent. So let's not act like they're
totally do. Brent Hubbs is a good player.
They the last 10 years, Hubbs, and Rob, anybody, they could bring in their third string guy, and he was really good. I mean, they don't have that kind of depth anymore.
No, I don't think they do. I mean, they had a lot of, attrition, so people leave the program. Here's the thing about that, whether it's matching up talent or not matching up talent. I mean, you look at them over the last few years, you look at this game over the last few years, Tennessee's been in a position where they've been either should have won the game, going back to the Butch Jones era, right? Or been competitive. I mean, Tennessee was really competitive. And what does that game look like last year if Callaway doesn't drop that ball there? I mean, Tennessee had people running open, and they were still trying to find themselves and figure out what they were doing. So I don't feel like Florida has just overwhelmed Tennessee for several years now. It's not like the Urban Meyer days, right? Where you looked up, you were afraid to kick the ball off because they were going to return it for a touchdown. And as Austin said, their second and third string were better than what you had, and it was just a blowout situation. I haven't felt that way with Florida. I think Tennessee's been closer to Florida than a lot of people want to give them credit for. And the reason they haven't got any credit for it is Tennessee's found every way under the sun to lose the game to Florida. And we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks. But, they got to get over the hump, and find a way to win it when they're evenly matched with Florida, or even a little bit better.
It's all mental. It's like, and I'll use myself as the analogy. There are some holes that just don't fit my eye, for a tee shot. And no matter how good I'm swinging it, if I've hit it in this bunker up to the left side of the fairway 10 straight times, I'm going to make it 11, no matter how well I'm playing. So, sometimes it's just a mental hurdle, and you've got to get over that.
Yeah, I agree. Ask Kentucky, right? I mean, Kentucky and Tennessee. I mean, it's very similar.
Hubbard, the snapshot of everything you're talking about to me, the middle picture is just Paul Fortenberry in the fetal position in the passenger seat riding back to Orlando after the 4th and 13. Just, I'll never forget it.
Let's go to Dewey Swims. How do you guys feel after 1 week of seeing Tennessee, their odds against Pitt, Florida, and LSU? AP, you can go here. I still like Tennessee over Pitt. I think Tennessee-Florida will be a good game, and I think Tennessee can go down and play with LSU. I think Tennessee can beat all those teams. Will they? Probably not, but nothing about this last weekend really changed what I thought. LSU is going to be a tough place to play. Obviously, they got to clean up some things. That was a bad week 1 loss, but if you think Tennessee's going to go down to LSU and just lay over or turn over, that's not going to happen.
No, if anything, I feel like Tennessee can just go down there and outscore LSU. LSU's defense, talking about defenses that aren't the same as they used to be. I mean, again, have talent, but they don't have – they grew on trees down there. The D linemen just at the Union walk-on D linemen look better than some of the Tennessee starters there for a while. So, for me, you just go in there and you just put up some points, and I think LSU's going to struggle even against – if Tennessee's defense isn't great. Jaden Daniels is – He's
not great.
Got playmaker in him, but if you're asking him to lead a big comeback, I don't think he's your guy.
Well, here's the thing too, and this goes for everybody. I mean, who knows what each team's going to look like in 3 weeks, 4 weeks? I mean, you don't have any idea. You don't know what injury situations are going to happen. You don't know what locker room situations are going on. Obviously, the things at LSU seem a bit unsettled, to say the least, with the start of the Brian Kelly era. How much do things improve? How much does your team get better? for Tennessee, I mean, is Brew McCoy, we got a very small snapshot of him, Eric, last week. What do we think he ultimately is going to be able to be in this offense? You know, what's Tennessee going to be at corner? Can they get solidified and played better there? I mean, part of this is development. That's why you can't look at week one and go, okay, here's going to be our record. Much the same way you shouldn't come out in July and go, okay, here's the top 25 teams in the country, because you just don't know. I mean, is North Carolina that bad? Are they going to give up 60 points every week to everybody they play? Probably not. Right. But they did in week one. It's about how you develop, and we'll see how much Tennessee develops. We'll see how much Florida develops, and it'll start for Tennessee this week against a Pittsburgh team that I don't think is a bad matchup for Tennessee.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you sometimes get two different teams in one season, how you start, how you finish. I mean, we go over examples all the time, but there are so many different things throughout the course of a football season that can change your identity and can change your mindset in that locker room. So,
I mean, just look at Tennessee a year ago. I mean, Rob, the Pittsburgh game, it's hard to make a first down at times. Yeah, Joe Milton overthrew some guys, but they were so off kilter and just weren't in sync. They lose that game to Florida, and you say, well, what coulda, shoulda. And then the next thing you know, they're putting up 35 points in the first half against Missouri, and it's a total different – it all just kind of clicked into place. So you just never know.
Look at Tennessee in 2020.
Yeah, you never know what's going to hit, and you never know what direction it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's we all look forward to the start of the season so much, and week one gets here, and it's just a smorgasbord of football. But I do think, Hubbard, you're right. You got to check yourself and not just make huge, draw huge conclusions about teams, because right now, I'd bet on LSU going 4-8, and that's probably not going to happen. That's probably not going to happen.
All right, let's go to Vol for live TP. Rob, let's stick with you. You got the matchup piece coming up today. Outside of the line of scrimmage, what are some key matchups or situational battles you're looking for on Saturday?
Well, I mean, just Caleb Slovis. I mean, he made a bunch of chunk plays against West Virginia. He only completed 16 passes, but he threw for over 300 yards. Tennessee's secondary cannot let that happen. I mean, I think we all we talked about it. It looked like they played soft, that they weren't very aggressive. Tennessee's got to keep the big plays off of them in that regard. And I mean, he averaged, almost 20 yards of completion. So that Tennessee cannot approach that level of, letting Slovis get anywhere like that, because the way they struggled running the ball. And on the other side, I mean, we touched on it earlier. I mean, Hubbard talks about it all the time. They've got to beat press coverage on the outside. I think they've got the horses to do that, but I mean, they're going to have to prove it.
All right, Old Mac, is it realistic to think UT can catch UGA, Georgia, in the East anytime in the near future, given Georgia's program momentum, the strength of the roster, their yearly recruiting pool, etc.? It feels like the gap there is insurmountable. Austin.
I won't say insurmountable, but I think it's just a climb. I mean, Georgia right now, the way they recruit Hubbs is, I mean, they recruit at a national level, and then to me, they have the greatest state in the country to pull kids in from. I mean, I think it's better than Florida, Texas, and California. I really do. I know there's not as many guys, but it sure feels like it. And, they are very much loyal to that G. And if they want a local kid coming in late, they'll go get him. And probably 98 out of 100 times. So I think it's far greater than 9 out of 10 times. It's a very small percentage that they don't get a kid that they truly want in state. So I think that, it's not insurmountable, but at the current clip, it's almost like, Nick reincarnated himself over in Athens, so to speak. And, I know Kirby's not necessarily Nick, but at the same time, a lot of what he's learned is from Nick, and he's doing it better than any of the former disciples have done to this point.
I'll tell you what, if you poll enough people and you poll former coaches, current coaches, if you put them on the old truth detector test, most people will tell you they think that Georgia is the best job in the SEC. When Georgia's aligned, their administration's aligned, they're committed, the way that they're committed right now, with all the resources they have, the recruiting base that they have, everything that they have going on there, there are a lot of people who truly believe that ultimately Georgia is the best job in the Southeastern Conference. And right now, Georgia's in complete alignment, and they've got it going on. Now, it's a challenge to sustain and stay there. But clearly, Rob, when they hired Kirby Smart, they said, we're going to quote the next level. They were winning 9-10 games with Mark Richt. They wanted to go win a championship, and everybody was all in to do it, and it changes. There are some programs in this league that should never be bad. Georgia's one of those.
Hubbard, I think we've always thought, even when they were struggling, maybe is not the right word, but when they were winning 8, 9, 10 games every year under Donna and Richt, I know you and I talked about it, and probably a lot of other people did, that it should be one of the best jobs in the SEC. And I don't think, like AP was talking about, I don't think it's insurmountable, but bottom line, you got to recruit like they do. That's where it starts. And Tennessee's recruiting at a level they haven't recruited at recently. They're still not recruiting like Georgia or Alabama.
All right, let's move on to one UT ball. The second is Pittsburgh's daunted defense going to struggle with Tennessee's offense? I think so. Is Tennessee's defense going to be able to keep up with the Pitt offense? On paper and in Vegas, this seems like a great matchup for Tennessee. Austin, I feel like Tennessee's offense can go and score. I do. I think it's a mismatch for Pitt's defense. They're not going to drop 8. We know that. Tennessee's going to have opportunities. Tennessee needs to protect the quarterback. But I think Tennessee can score. Now, flip that. It's going to be a big challenge for Tennessee's defense. Obviously, they're going to try to run the football. Can you shut that down? Can you make Keaton Slovis beat you? Is Keaton Slovis good enough to beat you? We'll see. But I think at the end of the day, Austin, Tennessee can go score points, and that's how Tennessee can win some football games a lot of the times.
Yeah, they're going to rely on their offense and see if their defense can get home enough, cause enough turnovers, and make enough plays to get the job done. I think Tennessee's going to score. I think they're going to score in the 40s in this game. So I think if Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh to me is not as good as they were a year ago, obviously without Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison, but I don't think they're as good up front. Their offensive line was not very good last week compared to having the fact that everybody's returning. Maybe they step it up this week in game 2, and huge improvement from game 1 to game 2. But I think Tennessee's offense can really get some stuff done against a Pittsburgh defense that is good. I wouldn't call it great.
Yeah, and Brent, before you go, let me jump in here. There's an injury concern at that right tackle position for Pittsburgh. At points in times against West Virginia, they were down to their third string guy. We'll see what it looks like going into this football game. Rodney Hammond Jr. didn't have a lot of success running the football, but he was their only guy that could do anything, and he had a couple of receptions. He's likely out for this football game. So those are some things. And again, that's why I said earlier in the week on the Rocky Top Roundtable, injuries can affect lines in a big way. Pitt's going through a little bit of it here early in the season. We'll have to see what it looks like on Saturday. Yeah,
no doubt. I think we go back to the question about Tennessee's offense. You go back and you rewatch the Pitt game from a year ago. Tennessee had people open. That they didn't connect on them. They missed several deep throws that could have made that a multiple score lead for Tennessee in the first half. They just didn't connect on them. So every time I go back and watch that game and see those things, it makes me think that Tennessee is going to be able to beat press coverage. Tennessee is going to be able to get guys open vertically down the field. I think there'll be great disappointment by Tennessee if that doesn't happen.
I'd love it if Tennessee come out and run the same exact play that they ran last year that Joe Milton overthrew, and just see if they connect this time.
Hey, Rob, let's go to Podunk Vol here. There was a question earlier in the pod about all the matchups not in the trenches. This is in the trenches. Can Tennessee's O-line keep Hendon Hooker off the ground? Can Tennessee's D-line be able to get enough pressure to get some sacks? Encouraging in that regard, West Virginia was able to get home 5 times for a loss of 39 yards against Keaton Slovis and that experienced offensive line.
Yeah, just based off West, and again, one small sample size, I'm drawing a lot of conclusions off 1 week. Maybe West Virginia is a lot better than I think they are, but they got consistent pressure. But they got home 5 times. They affected the quarterback quite a bit. But I also think they brought some stuff, which is one reason Slovis averaged almost 20 yards of completion. I think they opened themselves up some on the back end. On the other side, Tennessee protecting Hooker, is a bigger mystery to me whether Tennessee can get pressure, because I think they will. I think everybody's making too much out of no sacks against Ball State, because I think Tennessee was so vanilla. I I have real questions about Tennessee protecting Hooker. I'm not saying they can't. I'm really curious to see. I know Brent's talked a lot about how exotic Pitt will be up front, about Narduzzi playing games and being elaborate with the pressures, and I'm really curious to see it. I mean, Tennessee's running backs were not tested at all in pass protection last week. We've got questions about the left tackle spot, and even bringing 4 starters back. You're bringing 4 starters back from what was the worst pass protection unit in the SEC last year. So I think that's a big question mark.
Hey, AP, what happened with Tennessee and Raymond Polito? Remember, he came in on an unofficial visit about midway through the summer. Tennessee jumped in there late, but didn't take him long, committed to Alabama shortly thereafter. Anything to that, or was it just Tennessee got in there too late?
That's the big kid from California, right? The 6'7"
Yes.
guy who's got some had some ties to East Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
AP, I'm not trying to jump in here on you. I think Tennessee eval'd there. I'm not sure if he fit exactly what they were looking for, and I think they were probably a little bit too late to the party in some ways as well. But Tennessee eval'd. I think they liked Lucas Simmons and some of the other guys they were deep involved with more, and I don't think this kid wanted to wait and see what happened as the fall came along.
Yeah, they had deeper ties in with several of those other guys that they were in on, and they just decided to, I won't say punt, but like they just put more effort into the 4 that they had better relationships with.
All right, let's go to Seth Daddy 21. Oh, Rob, I saw you tweeting about this the other night. Could Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU start any worse?
I mean, it probably could, but not without an arrest, maybe.
I mean, here's the thing, too. Like, the whole media clapback in the press conference the other day, like, don't do that. That's so unprofessional. But, like, everything else with Brian Kelly.
I just want to see a picture of the person that said it. I mean,
I've seen it. Have you not seen it? It was a lady.
It was a lady. I know that. I didn't see the picture.
A young lady.
And there was some pretty good spin control out of that late Tuesday night, that the two had a friendly chat and joked about it and no hard feelings and yada, yada, yada. That got put out, they tried to get that put out there pretty quickly. But I think the bigger issue is having a field goal blocked, an extra point block, and fumbling 2 punts, and then having 3 of your stars take all their LSU stuff off their social media accounts.
Just
not getting the ball to your playmaker and stop throwing your players under the bus.
Going back to the TikTok stuff in January, just absolutely brutal. I mean, even Butch Jones looked at that and was like, man, Brian Kelly, that's a bad look. And, this weekend, I mean, I just no. I mean, it always felt like a horrible fit to me. I don't know. I know we've kind of all talked about it at different times, but I just – maybe he turns it around and wins a bunch of football games, but that just seems like a horrible cultural fit all the way around. But
Butch Jones is to Rob what Isaiah Thomas is to Michael Jordan. Anytime he can get a jab in, no matter 30 years later, he's going to do it.
AP, have I showed you my organizational chart for Volquest this weekend? I've got you starting. Right? I mean, you're not a starter, AP. You're at the top of the organizational chart.
Yeah, well, Ben fell on a helmet.
Surfer Vol wants to know about being. It's difficult for Tennessee to get their allotments of tickets for this football game. I hope the stadium is 3/4 of the way orange. That's a ticket situation, Brent. What's going on up there trying to get up to Acrisure Stadium?
Well, I think the biggest thing is a lot of the Tennessee, the tickets that Tennessee got to sell through Tennessee were upper deck tickets, and that was what they were offering. And I think that was a bit of an issue that took place. I think some people have bought their own tickets through Ticketmaster, through Pitt that way to get a better seat. I don't know what the contract. I mean, the contractual agreement was a certain number of tickets, but I don't know if it specifically said where they had to be at in the stadium or anything like that. But there was some disappointment. I think that there were more tickets in the upper deck than anywhere else for the visiting team. Not many down in the lower bowl.
Austin, this is from Rice Trout. Does the offer to Snowden, who is a 2023 cornerback, does that mean the staff expects to lose one of the quarterbacks, or is this just depth?
No, I said on the board, said earlier in the podcast, Tennessee wants to add another corner in this class. Tennessee's in obviously you have to recruit them to the finish line, and there'll be other teams that come after the 3 they have. But no, they're not expecting to lose any of those guys. At least they're hoping not to.
Taproom 82. How many scholarship players are on the current team, Brent Hubbs?
Like 80-ish.
Yeah, I think 79 to 81, 80, somewhere right around there. They're not at full strength, but they're not as depleted as they were a year ago. So I'd say around 80, something like that.
Will Tennessee get up to 85 for next season?
Yeah, I mean, assuming the NCAA and all that stuff is completely abolished and done, and there's no more, thoughts on, self-reduction and that type of thing. If that's behind them, then yeah, I think they can get back to 81, 85. Because remember, AP, there's no signing class restriction. You can sign 45 if you want to for the next 2 years each year if you can find the room on the 85 number.
That's right. And, I think a lot of it will depend on, Eric, how many they lose after the season. I think most schools are expecting to see a bunch of movement at the end of the year just because it's becoming the it thing. And, even your better players, I think, will be getting, if they've not transferred before, will be getting pitches from other schools through their other schools' players to come join them, like we saw this offseason with a few of those highly touted guys bouncing around.
Rob Lewis, is Ellerbe a good offensive line coach?
I mean, I think he's solid. I mean, we've got, 1 year to look at so far in one game. I mean, I don't think he's bad. I mean, I think we've seen bad offensive line coaches here in the not so recent past. But, I think the jury's still out. As I mentioned before, I mean, Tennessee was the worst team in the SEC last year in protecting the quarterback, gave up more sacks than anybody. And that's with Hendon Hooker, who's not exactly a statue back there by any means. So, I think the jury's still out. I mean, Tennessee, in my estimation, should be one of the better offensive fronts in the SEC this year when you're talking about bringing back 4 starters. But by the same token, we talk about bad pass protection. They were also second in the league last year running the football. Almost, you're right at 220 yards a game.
Eric, I'll say this, and again, take it for what it's worth, but his reputation in the coaching world, Austin's pretty good because Kirby Smart had some legitimate interest in bringing Glenn Ellerbe to his staff when Matt Luke said, "Hey, I've had enough and I'm going into retirement." So I think Glenn's reputation throughout college football probably a little better than a lot of people want to give it credit for.
Yeah,
Yep.
and again, Tennessee's second in the SEC in rushing last year. I'm not sure why he. I mean, I'm not saying he catches a ton of flack like John Chavis in the mid '90s flack, but I don't get where this perception is out there that he's sketchy.
Let's go to Rare Fro 33. Does Amari Thomas have what it takes to dominate a game? For instance, the Pitt game, because it's the one coming up on Saturday. AP, what do you think? Is he there yet to where he can dominate a game, or is it just about?
I think he can dominate a
series,
flash of plays, a series. Okay. But as far as a game, no, I don't think he's there.
There's not many at that position that dominate. I mean, there are guys who flash, but I mean, I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, is he looking for Aaron Donald? I mean, there are not many guys that just dominate at the defensive tackle position because they face double teams and there's so many ways to scheme around those guys. It's hard for a guy to be a, quote, dominant player. You can find a rush in that can take over. I mean, we saw Derek Barnett take over multiple series, but it's a lot harder to find a guy who is a, quote, dominant force at the defensive tackle spot. Tennessee's had a lot of good defensive tackles here through the years, but they haven't had a ton who I would call just straight up dominating defensive tackles. John Henderson, okay. I wouldn't call Albert Haynesworth's career at Tennessee a dominant defensive tackle. That's just a hard position to be a dominant player at.
All right, we got time for 2 more questions. Let's go with Vladimir Winalowski, I don't know. Appreciate your question. How does Heupel's Army compare to Napier's with respect to numbers? And do you anticipate the NCAA or whichever governing body eventually replaces it in the future to start limiting the number of analysts in a program in the future? Brent, that seems like a question for you.
Yeah, they're not limiting those. I think in fact, the proposal is to go the opposite direction and just let it be unlimited, as many as you want. In terms of the Army size, I mean, Josh Heupel's got a lot of people around. I don't know that Josh Heupel feels like he's handcuffed with his coaching staff size. I know Billy Napier had the staff photo, AP, where they brought everybody out and gave them a Florida shirt for their staff photo. But I don't think it's a situation where Florida's, some grossly bigger staff than Tennessee or anybody else in the SEC. Remember, in this league, it just means more, which means you just spend more money.
Yeah, ultimately, it's just about how much money you want to spend. I mean, you might be able to get some young, inexperienced guys that are bodies that can help you, chart and take notes and stuff, and you get those on the cheap. But if you're wanting to get quality people and do the kind of the Nick Saban, resurrect the career rehab stuff, you got to have some money. Those top end guys are not going to come for peanuts.
You're not getting Derek Dooley on your staff for $35,000, AP. It's not going to happen.
No, not going to happen.
Last one goes to Checker Nealon. You guys can all jump in on this one. We'll start with Rob, though. Where would you take a recruit on a big game day?
Like on campus, I guess.
Make it your own.
You're talking about, I mean, AP, is it legal? Can we take him across the street to the Vol Navy? Can we walk over there?
Yeah,
we can't we?
Yeah, you just have to stay within a mile of campus.
That's what I would definitely do that. I would walk them through the fort for a little bit, and make sure that maybe I had seeded a couple of the houses over there to let them know that there was going to be a recruit coming through, so you could have some co-eds ready to welcome them and tell them how much they'd enjoy having them in Knoxville. And but yeah, this from the on game day from the fort, from like Highland Avenue, if we can get that far up the street, all the way over to Louisville Navy action. Just a slice of game day life.
Well, there you have it. That's what you do. That's how you get somebody to come to Tennessee,
which is pretty much AP's game day routine.
Yeah.
He's got the tailgate on the big Sea Ray, and then if he's got time, he goes to the little Sea Ray for that secondary tailgate, but only if he has time. Then he's got those 2 or 3 in G10 he's got to get to.
No,
right, AP?
C9.
I
don't go to G10.
He's not slumming it in G10, Harper. He's in C9.
He's got to go to C9, Circle Park. How many do you hit? I mean, what do you hit? 7 or 8 every game day, AP?
I just get down there and wait on Rob. He's always signing autographs coming down the Vol walk.
AP was what was kickoff? 7:00 last Sunday or last Thursday. AP was on campus at 2:30 and wasn't sure he was going to have enough time to get everywhere.
And he still has time to sit there.
You have to network.
Yeah, absolutely.
And wait on Rob for the 2-minute drill.
That's why they all go AP when he walks in.
Mm-hmm. Oh. All right, Volquest.com, $1 for 1 year. I mean, it's football season. Now's the time. If you're listening and you haven't joined us, welcome to all Tennessee fans. $1 for 1 year on 3. That's at Volquest.com. Continue to please follow our work on the YouTube page as well. But most of all, thank you so much for subscribing, interacting, and being with us throughout this first week of our On 3 experience. It has been an absolute blast, and it's because of all you guys. It's going to be a fun week. Tennessee at Pittsburgh coming up on Saturday. Follow the front page and the GQ for all the matchup pieces, score predictions, and more. The VFL Players Lounge coming up on Saturday, and we'll take you through game day. For Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price, I am Eric Cain. Thanks so much for listening to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast every week right here on Volquest.